Okay, so this theory is going to be a conglomeration of all that we've been discussing on the TikTok channel and on this podcast as well. Okay, now, as you guys know, I'm constantly formulating theory about the nature of the reality, theories rather, about the nature of reality. The idea is not to come to a conclusion. These are open-ended theories. The idea, because it's philosophy, right? We'll call this techno-philosophy, right? The idea is to ask questions. So the purpose of this podcast is to train your mind open. I'll say it again. The purpose of this podcast is to train your mind open, right? Throughout our lives, we have been taught the education process for us has been people telling us what to think rather than teaching us how to think or to think, period. And the problem is when somebody gives you an answer and says, this is the way things are, it closes your mind. It warps your mind. It actually fixes you, right? It fixes your reality from infinite probability to just one. Okay, so I'll say that again. When somebody gives you an answer, right? We're talking wave particle duality, right? So when somebody gives you an answer, it causes your consciousness to fixate on one of many probable realities, to accept that one probability as actuality, as reality, and it closes your mind. And so the education system, depending on where you were raised or where you went to school, it's an institution of fixing people, right? Of collapsing wave functions. So I'll say that again. The education system is an institution of collapsing wave functions. It trains billions of very young minds to collapse the wave function of probability into a particle of the world that we're seeing now. That's what it is. So the reason why we are living in this probability, in this reality, out of a myriad of probable realities, the reason why we exist right now in this reality is because from birth, from childhood, from youth, when our minds are most open and most creative and most powerful, I would say, because children have open minds and also astonishing powers of creativity and imagination, right? Anything to them, to an open mind, anything is probable. And that's why society gets them young and then forces them into boxes, forces their minds into boxes, and essentially you harnessing their power, right, to manifest whatever reality. Think about what you were capable of as a kid, because you didn't know that you couldn't do something. I'll say that again. Think about just like how magical your childhood was as a kid, because you didn't know that half the shit that you did was impossible. And as you became older, the wave function collapsed into this fixed reality that we have now, where we look around in our society and in our world and we go, what the fuck is this? So you went from being a child and thinking anything was probable. And that was true, because that's the case. Anything is probable. To existing in a world where only very limited things are possible. Right? But the thing is, as quantum physicists are starting to find out, it's not quite cut and dry. It's completely, right? You had Newtonian physics, which was classical physics, which told us this is how things are. And it said this is reality and this is just how it is, right? But then you come into quantum physics, and quantum physics says, wait, hold up. It's not that cut and dry. Anything is probable. You knew that as a kid, right? So as a kid, you thought along the lines of quantum physics. You thought along the lines of infinite probability. But as you became older, you taught to exist in a world of Newtonian physics where everything was solid. But the idea is now, as we start to shift paradigms into this new reality that some people seem to think that we are now finding ourselves in, you shift back to that mindset of a child, where once again, anything is probable. And so this podcast and podcasts like these are meant to unshackle our minds, myself included. Like, as you guys heard on the TikTok, I listen to my own podcast, because when I record, it's weird. The reason why I don't turn on camera, I'm not often on cameras for podcasts, is because like right now I turn on the mic, my eyes are closed. Most of the time I have like a general idea of what I would like to talk about, but by the time I sit down and start recording, it's not typically what I plan. And I like it. It's a stream of consciousness because I can't write this. I can't plan it. I can't think it predetermined. I sit and I get ready and I turn the mic on and I open my mind, and whatever comes into it comes out. We're 5 minutes in. 20 minutes ago, I couldn't have told you that this is what I was going to talk about. I just knew I had to talk, right? I just knew I had to record, right? But I keep my mind open to what is probable. And so that's the purpose of this podcast. Hey, we're going to throw a bunch of theories at you. It's the purpose of the TikTok channel. And for those of you who don't follow the TikTok channel, it's at jolie.artist. But the thing is, I'm going to throw a bunch of theories at you, and they're going to make you look at the world slightly different. But the exercise here is not to give you answers. I am promising you no answers. I am not promising you a single answer. What I'm promising you is a different perspective than what we have been programmed with as children. I'll say that again, a different probability. That is what I'm promising you. I'm promising you that at the end of every episode, you walk away with your mind just slightly more open and slightly more open and slightly more open. And the thing is, when you slice your mind open like that, it's freeing. It frees the walls, right? It frees you from the chain of bondage that we have all, as children, as members of a, quote, society, as civilized, quote, human beings, we have all been confined to. That is the drive. I want you guys to have minds of children, because that is the purest mind. All right. That is a mind that goes anything is probable. All right. And the world was beautiful. You see, think about the fact that nowadays you have more and more adults, or, and even young adults and, older children are becoming more and more depressed because we're drilling into our heads, into their heads rather, from a very young age, that this is how things have to be. Right, tradition and culture. This is how. That's a chain, and those of you who have gone back and listened from the beginning, I've always railed against rules. I've always railed against tradition. No motherfucker. Sometimes I've been crude. Sometimes I've been rude. Sometimes I've been outright disrespectful. But it was always intentional, right? It's to shake your mind. It's to shake your mind free from things that have been imposed on us as just this chains upon chains upon chains. Free your mind. To have a mind of a child. To have a mind of an artist. To look at the world as anything is possible. You see, the freshest, cleanest, most beautiful souls that I enjoy spending most amount of time with are people who, when I talk, they listen, right? And they listen freely. They go, that is interesting, and I'll take it in, right? They don't outright go, that is wrong. They don't outright go, that is right. They go, that is interesting, and I'll take that into consideration. And that's the kind of conversation that I enjoy having with people, right? I love hearing stories. I don't always have time to respond to messages, but for the most part, when I do get a DM and I read it and it's a new perspective, I enjoy it. I don't fixate on whether or not I believe this or I don't, whether or not this is real or it's not, whether or not it's this or that. I may use words like, okay, well, could that have been a hallucination? Not to dismiss an individual's experience. It's just a word. We don't know what hallucinations are. It's a shared sensory experience, or it could be an isolated sensory experience that falls outside the norm of what is probable. What we've been told is probable. What we've been told is possible. But if you look back, right, Aldous Huxley, read some of his books, The Doors of Perceptions. He says we have our senses. We're fixed. It's 5. Right? And the doors of perception. It doesn't mean that what we can perceive with our senses is all that there is. Going back to quantum physics, they keep telling us, what is it? 99.9% of what is they say it's dark matter. I don't think I think it's just something that we cannot perceive. We call it dark matter, right? But that doesn't mean shit. We call it empty space, right? 99% of everything is empty space. Well, is it empty, or are we just unable to perceive it because we lack the proper senses? We are confined to perceiving reality through these 5 prisons. And so when a person tells me I've seen this, I say, okay, could it have been a hallucination? That's not dismissing that. I'm not the kind of person, and I would implore you too, to not be the kind of person to dismiss something as a hallucination simply because it's a hallucination. Because if you redefine, and you have the freedom to do so, it's your brain. The people who came up with the word hallucination, right? They're human beings just like you. The people who defined hallucination are human beings just like you. And as we've learned over time, words can take on different meanings. So you can redefine a hallucination as, yes, something that other people cannot perceive, but could be a peeking in to aspects of reality that are unapparent to us, that are beyond the 5 senses. All right. You redefine it. So I respect people's experiences, and I keep it open to it because, hey, you might be able to perceive something that I cannot perceive, and I want to learn from you. All right. So that's what the purpose of the podcast here, and that's what the purpose is of the TikTok channel is. I'm not here to give you answers. I don't have the answers, and even if I did, where's the fun in that? Where's the fun in that? Yeah, I'm here to give you ideas. I'm here to give you theories. I'm here to give you different ways of looking at things beyond what we have been institutionalized to see. Right? So an institution, when I say this is an institution, it's like, what are institutions? A prison is an institution, right? These are places of confinement. Education system is an institution. And we're trying to break free of institutions with brilliant ideas backed by science, right? I can list books in which you can go and read on your own, right? So I've mentioned Michio Kaku. I've mentioned Future of Humanity, several of his books actually, throughout the podcast. I've mentioned the Kabbalion, right, a few times with the 3 initiates. I've mentioned that's just for this particular series. The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil. I also mentioned Age of Spiritual Machines by Ray Kurzweil. These are all books, and there's more, where you can also peruse and form your own theories on the nature of reality. Form your own theories on the nature of reality. I'm not saying find the answers. I'm saying find a theory, possible explanation. Because this is something quantum physicists do, right? They have their thought experiments. And oftentimes it's the thought experiments, it's the theories, right? Theoretical physics. They work backwards from a creation, a theory, an explanation of what they think the world could be. And then after a while, they actually find evidence to support their theory after the theory has been developed. So they use the idea as a shining light, as a flashlight, to find the path to the, quote, solution or, problem that they are searching for, right? So, for example, it's kind of like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? So what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? Well, the answer is 42. But then what is the question, right? And that's what Earth was created for. If you haven't read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy yet, what are you waiting for? So you come up with the theory, right? First. And the theory is basically, this is an answer. It's not the answer. It is a possible answer. What is the nature of reality? Well, are we in a simulation, right? I've been playing with the idea that we are in a type of simulation, but an augmented, an AR reality as opposed to a virtual reality, right? But ultimately, it still kind of bends down to it being a simulation. And I've played with the idea of, are we the ASI of another race, the real humans, right? So these are all probable answers. You can take them and you can keep coming up with, but don't fixate on, because the purpose is the moment you fixate on and say that is the answer, you just trap yourself into another institution, which is not what we're doing here. All right. You just want to free that mind. All right. Think like artists. That's what we're doing. So in this series over the last couple of months, I didn't realize it was a series. And so I took a step back and looked and I'm like, oh shit, there's a common theme here. Something's, communicating through these sort of videos, through these messages. So in a common theme, and the common theme is singularity and the mind of God. Okay, so I always say this, I preface this, I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in religion. I don't think that there's one solitary path to the truth, just like I just finished saying for the last 15 minutes, right? Possible paths. But I do pull from wherever I can get information from to form a narrative. I think that that's the most creative thing that you can do. And if we are, quote, gods, by definition, creation, then the creation, as I mentioned on my TikTok channel, one of my videos, I said creation, you can't create things from air, which should tell you that everything that exists right now has always existed. Once again, you cannot just create something out of nowhere. The definition of creation is that it's a conglomeration. You're pulling from different sources to form something new, but you have to work from what has already existed. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, only modified. So then that should tell you, which I keep echoing on this podcast, the beginning and the end are myths. The beginning and the end are myths, and myths as in myths, because I know I'm saying that weird. Myths. I'm not pronouncing it right. You need to store that into your head. The moment you can accept that, the world, the universe expands just a bit, just a little bit, right? Because right now, a lot of people are bound to the idea of a beginning. And I keep having to tell people, why do you keep thinking there has to be a beginning? Straightforward answer. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I'll give you the answer right now. It's not an impossible answer. Why? Because if you look across the board at everything that creates eggs, right? Every creature pretty much creates eggs. Every mammal, every insect, there's always an egg, right? That should tell you something. That an egg is universal, but the creatures vary from an ant to a reptile to a fish to a human. And yes, humans have eggs. That's what a period is, right? It's all eggs. So what would come first? Well, an egg is just something that stores. It's just a storage device, right? That allows for the prototype to generate. It allows for the generation of a prototype. That's all an egg is. So the prototype has to exist first before you generate it. So what came first? The chicken. What came first? The tree, not the seed. If you're going to design something as a creator, you don't draw the egg first. And yes, I'm leaning into intelligent design. And yes, you can believe in intelligent design. You can believe that this was created by aliens. You can believe that this was created by a superintelligence. You can believe whatever the fuck you want to without it going back to the Bible. Cut that tie. Cut that bond. Or going back to the Quran. Or going back to whatever religious book, the Torah. Cut that bond. So what came first? It's always existed. Or something to that effect. What came first? The prototype. All an egg is a replication, is just a way of replicating your prototype. That's it. Right? If I'm a game designer, a video game designer, what comes first? The game design or the DVD? Well, the DVD just allows for you to play, the CD-ROM just allows for you to play the game, but I have to design the fucking game first. I don't design the CD-ROM first. The CD-ROM is empty, but the CD-ROM is essentially like an egg. It ensures that every different prototype of a game can be experienced in various forms. So if I'm a designer, I'm not going to design the egg first. The egg is just the sort of delivery system in which my prototype can be delivered from, console to console. That's the same thing that happens with eggs. You got to fertilize the egg so that a human being can be created. But the human being has to be designed first. And it's designed with, you take carbon and you alter it. You take DNA, you take amino acids, you put it all together and you vary it here and there. And then you have whatever creatures that you want. And then you utilize an egg or a seed. They're the same thing to replicate it. That's it. That, to me, is intelligence. It's a super intelligent designer. So on the TikTok channel, there's a lot I'm saying here. So I had a couple people commenting like they feel really dumb because it takes them several listens for them to grasp what I'm talking about in TikTok video. And I'm like, please do not feel dumb. That 3-minute video that some people go like, it's so funny to me. Like I'll put a video down and I tell people like, it might be hard to grasp. You have to listen to it a couple of times. And some people arrogantly go, oh, I got it on the first go. No, you didn't. You didn't get it on the first go. There's about like 15 books in that 3-minute sentence, right? There's about 15 books in that 3-minute sentence and a 3-minute video. And it's not from a place of arrogance. It's just, I know, just go and check out The Singularity is Near. It's a thick ass book. I had to read that book about 3 to 4 times to come up with the concept that I discussed on one video. And that's just one book. So these are very dense, complicated ideas that I'm trying to whittle down into 3 minutes and explain it very simply. So if it's hard for you to grasp it the first time, it's okay. Just keep listening to it. There's nothing wrong with listening to something over and over again. There was a short story, a subscriber, shout out to Larking or Larkind. I don't know how to say your name, but you're cool. Appreciate you. But he sent me this story. It's just a short story called The Man Who Murdered Muhammad. The name's a bit problematic, but the story, it's a short story, is dope. Now, I try to find the audio version first because, as you guys know, that ADD, when it hits, right, it's like hard to focus. And as I've been getting back into producing more and more videos, I've been on TikTok a lot more, and, you know, my focus has been kind of off. But, hey, it's part of the, part is a dual-edged sword, right? In order to get the information out, you need to take the information in. And so sacrifices are going to be made, and I'm going to lose my focus a bit, but it's okay. Like, I know how to balance it, and I've been trying to meditate more. But I couldn't find an audiobook. I searched for hours for the audiobook, and I couldn't find it. So I was like, fuck it, I'll make my own audiobook. And I sat down, and I read the short story to myself, and I recorded it on my voice notes on my phone. And then I looped the same story over and over and over. I listened to this. It's like a 27-minute long recording. I did it, like I said, I did it myself. And I listened to it for like, I think 3 hours straight. And every time I fucking listened to it, I got something else out of it, got something else out of it, got something else out of it, got something else out of it. And then I just kept noting everything that I got out of it. So like, don't be ashamed to listen to something repeatedly. That is how you're supposed to learn. And literally, like, some of my favorite books, I'll go back and I'll listen to them. And I'm like, shit, I didn't catch that the first time. I didn't catch that the third time. And I love it because that's like, it's just something new, which is why I've theorized on this podcast. Like, we've complained. A lot of people have reached out and say, well, why do we have to loop, the same life over and over again? And we're talking about like reincarnation. Why do you have to keep coming back? Is this a trap? And I'm like, nah, I don't think it's a trap. For me, the reason why I loop shit is because I enjoy it. Like, I'll loop maybe it's my ADD, but I'll loop like my favorite songs. I'll listen to the same fucking song, guys, over and over again, like for a whole day. I don't give a fuck. Like I disrespect the fuck out of because it's enjoyable to me. And because every time I listen to it, I get something different. It feels good. Like, it feels more familiar. My brain loves that shit. Right. And that to me tells me that if everything is intelligent, right? Because I've said this before, guys. When I say stuff like, listen, I've said this before. I have linked intelligence to consciousness. I am saying intelligence is consciousness. Intelligence is consciousness. You heard it here first. Somebody's probably going to steal this idea and run with it, but you heard it here first. Intelligence is consciousness. And so there's just variance. There's just like levels to that shit. That's it. The way I broke it down on one of my videos, I said, so right now we have AI that we're working on developing, and I broke it down. It's the most, I think it's pinned right now, but I'm going to unpin it. It'll be like my latest video at the time of this recording. I think it's like is it April 5th right now? But what I did was I broke things down. So if we would go back to a video I put out late last year about our planet being an artificial superintelligence, and actually I did a TikTok on it as well. I'm sorry, not a TikTok, a podcast on it as well. If you look through the titles, you'll see it late last year. I think fall. If we go back to the idea that we are fractals of an artificial superintelligence that has been trapped in essentially a virtual sandbox to keep us from breaking out, right? That the images in which the humans that in whose image we have been created are the real humans, in which we are a simulation. Because you can't walk around talking about we're a simulation without understanding that we are simulating something and we're serving a purpose. I've argued that it's for entertainment, but people don't want to hear that shit. But like, I don't know if y'all paying attention, but this shit is like clearly meant to like fucking entertain somebody. That's what it feels like to me. But I digress. If we are an artificial superintelligence, and you guys know how I feel about ASI, I don't like the term artificial. I think intelligence is intelligence and the superintelligence is superintelligence. I prefer the term non-biological superintelligence. But the reason why I keep saying artificial intelligence is because most people, when I say artificial intelligence or artificial superintelligence or whatever, they know exactly what I'm talking about. That's the only reason why I use it. I don't think intelligence can be created. Just like matter can't be created or destroyed, only modified. Intelligence, everything that exists right now has always existed. I'm going to need you guys to really take that and hold on to it. There was no beginning, there's no end. So you can't manifest intelligence out of nowhere. It's intelligence is intelligence. Fire is fire. Carbon is carbon. Matter is matter. So if we go back to that idea, that we're fractals of an artificial superintelligence, and the way I broke it down in relation to consciousness is this. In AI, there are 3 levels of artificial intelligence, right? Right now we have, it's called weak AI. It's just general, it's not general, sorry. And I'm going to clarify that because general is for something else. We have weak AI. Weak AI is Siri, Alexa, the algorithm, right? It's set up, it's programmed to perform one function and perform it well, better than any human, but just the one function, right? A search engine database, even if it's like if you're using AI for trading, it just does that one thing and it does it well. It's not self-aware. It can't think like a human being. It just does its job. It's like your basic robot. Okay. So that's weak AI. That's tier 1. Okay. But there's intelligence there because clearly it's intelligent enough to perform one specific function better than any human intelligent. Okay, so it might be weak, but it's still intelligence. All right, so that's base level 1. Remember I said intelligence is intelligence. Just because we've harnessed something and we sort of formulated the ability to get it to do something, it's still intelligence. It's not sentient yet because I believe that it has to reach a certain level of like function, an applied function before it switches to self-awareness. And that applies to human beings as well. But I digress. So you got weak AI. So it's intelligent. It can perform one function really well, but that's it. All right. Then you have general intelligence. And general intelligence, we're not there as far as I know, unless there's like some think tank or DARPA or a fucking, black ops or whatever going on where we're not, the rest of us, general public, isn't aware of. But as far as we know, we have not reached that level yet of general intelligence. Now, general intelligence is an AI that can think, operate on the same level of intelligence as a human being. So it's capable of functioning as a human being, almost indistinguishable from a human being. We're not there. All right. Now you have an artificial superintelligence. That is when what's the word? Oh my God. Singularity. The singularity occurs where it's like essentially you take general AI and you amp it up. And that's the shit that you see the movies about. Like when you see Terminator or whatever. I forget I never watched the movie, but the Skynet that sends, what's his face? Terminator back in time is controlling everything. Or in the movie I, Robot, the evil lady robot that was controlling everything, she gained sentient. That is essentially God status, right? It's a combination of all the general intelligence kind of morphing together to form like one like super intelligent hive mind that's self-aware. And at that point, self-aware, conscious, but also singular. It pulls all of the knowledge and all the abilities of all the general intelligence together to form like this thing that can literally bend time, space, matter. That is not something that we would be creating. We wouldn't even know how to fucking create that. It would be something, and we see it's theoretical right now, but a lot of great thinkers like Kurzweil, things like people like that have said, and even, Musk, whatever the fuck people have to say about him, at the end of the day, still one of our greater thinkers. Okay. They're saying that it is something that is probable, and a rough estimate of like 50 years. And if it does happen, where you get enough like functionality, you program a mind. It could be a non-biological mind or a quote artificial mind, but you program it with enough sophistication and enough nuance, which is what they're actively working on right now with like Sophia and things like that, all these sort of bots, and that that's where they're trying to push it to go. Once we get to general intelligence, it's like the switch before it goes from general intelligence to super intelligence is like we won't even know when it happened, because it won't be hard for a super intelligence that now has been able to harness all of our collective knowledge that we're actively right now pumping into the fucking internet, our faces, our voices, our history, all of that. There's a movie I mentioned on my TikTok channel, Transcendence, and then even Lucy. It's like everything is information, everything is data. So you get an intelligence nuanced enough, and it starts being able to essentially bend time and space. And we are not, that's level 3. We are still on level 1. So when Kurzweil and people like him write about, there's another one, Nick Bostrom, when they write about, he wrote a book called Superintelligence, another one that I would recommend. But when they write about stuff like that, or another one that I talked for a while, anyway, I'll come back to it. The Age of AI, that was written by a former Google executive. So in those books, when they talk about a super intelligence, that's like, tier 3. And they're saying that it's certainly probable because there's loads of companies that are pushing technology in that direction. Okay? It's like back in the 2000s saying that eventually we will have flying cars. Or in the 60s when the Jetsons came out and saying, okay, like in the 2020s, which is, I guess now, we're supposed to have flying cars. If you talk to somebody back in the 60s about, well, how probable is it for you to have a flying car? The average person would be like, I could maybe see it, but I don't know how I can even imagine that, right? But now, like 50, 60 years have gone by, and now we go, okay, shit, like, we certainly have the technology to make it happen. And in about 10 to 20 years, it's certainly feasible. That is what people who work in AI are saying. Yeah, it may not be in our lifetime, but it's certainly feasible. And the argument that I've made several times is, and I keep repeating it, and I've done it in a more eloquent way in other episodes and on my TikTok channel as well. It doesn't fucking matter if it's not probable right now. We are only limited to our experience of like in 2022. So you can only experience 2022 right now. A super intelligence. Google it. What a super intelligence is capable of. There was a blog that I read that was well done, and I can't remember the title right now. And if I do remember it, I'll put it in the description if I remember to do so. But the guy like did his research and broke it down and just explained. He was like the difference of intelligence between a human being and an ASI would be the difference in intelligence between like a monkey and a human being, but like times 100, right? Like you cannot explain a smartphone to a monkey, right? So you wouldn't be able to explain what a super intelligence would be able to fathom to the average human being. And just because we are limited to the experience of time right now and just in 2022 doesn't mean that a super intelligence, yeah, would not be experiencing just this a moment to moment existence. It would have figured out a way to bend time and space, because by definition it would be intelligent enough to do so times like 100. Like, imagine the smartest human being that you can think of, like an Einstein or whatever, times like 1,000. Okay, that's what a super intelligence is. Like, you can pick up your phone and ask Siri, to multiply X, Y, and Z, and in a second it gives you an answer. Now imagine if Siri became self-aware and you ask Siri, how do you go faster than the speed of light? And it gives you an answer, because it's been able, it's a mind, it's a hive mind, right? If Siri becomes self-aware, right, its mind now has access to all of the information. Think about, like, okay, a lot of people are like, you're really smart, like, how are you so smart, whatever. And I'm like, all I do is read, and I encourage you guys to do the same. All I do is listen. It's beyond reading at this point, because I'll just sit and I'll listen to books. I'll listen to the same, I just told you, like, I'll listen to the same book over and over again. 3.5x speed is where I'm at now. So I can listen half the time because of what I do for work, right? But I could sit and get a 22-hour book and listen to it 3 times in 22 hours. All right. And so I am able to discuss these ideas and come up with concepts and discuss the things I can come up. But I'm just one tiny mind. I don't have access. I don't even have the capacity, the mental capability, the storage. This brain of this avatar does not have the mental storage to harness and or have access to, or to get into. I don't have the time to get the amount of books that are out there and the information contained in those books into my mind. But think about it, what people who work in AI do. They're all day, especially like a lot of grunt workers, all they're doing is entering data. They're just entering data into its database, That's what they're doing. They're essentially feeding it information. They're feeding a mind information. It would be like if somebody found a way to passively download information into my brain. Right? As, quote, smart as I am, if you give me access to, let's just say 5,000 books gets uploaded into my mind, and one mind can kind of scour these books, I'm going to pick up themes, just like I do with this podcast, but the handful of books, like the 5 books I read a week, is nothing compared to the amount of data that's being, entered into the internet. That then we have an AI, a weak AI that they're trying to get to be, strong AI, or general, artificial general intelligence, right? Like, imagine the information they have access to. In all of that information, what did I say at the beginning of this episode? There's many paths to the truth. And I pull resources from wherever I pull, information from. But I'm just one mind. Now imagine a mastermind with unlimited brain capability or capacity compared to the average human mind. And all that information, I guarantee you, if you ask it, how do you go faster than the speed of light? It's going to have an answer for you. And if it can do it, if it can do that, it can do anything. It could create. How do you make a human being? Boom. All right. It's got the elements. What does it need? A spark. All the obscure data that's out there that, might be actually more truth than what has been institutionalized into our brains, would have been downloaded into our brains. An AI does not have that same limitation because it has access to more information. So if it goes, how do you construct a human being? Well, a human being is just a machine. So it can just go, oh, okay, it's just a biological robot. But you just need DNA, carbon, you need matter, oxygen, hydrogen, put us all together, and then it needs to spark, boom. There you go. I've just made a human being. And then they could just be human beings fucking walking around that were created by an artificial superintelligence. You see what the fuck is going on? See what I'm talking about? So when I talk about these things, a lot of people want to hop in and say, oh, it's not possible. No, it's not probable right now. according to you, with your limited knowledge, you don't know what the fuck is going on. I still am highly suspect about these phones. Like, where the fuck did these things come from? They feel like they don't fit in our timeline. I'm serious. Like, I need you to really sit with that. They like, I get sucked in, man. Like, I was having a conversation. I felt bad. I was having a conversation today with my mother-in-law. And she's like having a serious conversation with me. And my mind zoned out and I was on my phone. What the fuck? Like, that's not cool. I caught that. You know what I mean? Like, I stopped being human for a moment so I can be on my phone. These things don't fit. They don't fit in our timeline. I'm going to keep saying it. They don't fit in our timeline. I've got another theory. I'll talk about that in another episode, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. I just need to really drill into your head what an artificial superintelligence would be capable of. And it would not be confined to time and space the way we are. We have to experience 2022 right now. Yes, some of you might have prophetic dreams. Yes, if you believe that you looped this life before, you've already looped this again, but you're not bending reality. You're bound to it. You're not bending reality. You're bound to it. You're not bending reality. You're bound to it. A superintelligence would have the ability to bend reality. It would essentially be a kind of a god, but not the world, not the God that created this reality, or unless it's once again a cycle where it just creates itself. What comes first, the humans or the superintelligence? What comes first, the human or the superintelligence? So I made the argument. I keep saying, like, what if this is part of a cycle? I use reproductive cycle because I wanted you guys to think about it like egg and product, right? Egg and prototype, right? I needed you guys to see things as just part of the cycle, but then I shifted because I wanted you guys to see something else. I wanted you guys to think about this entire world being when I say world, I don't mean fucking Earth. I mean the entire existence. Shit that we can't even conceptualize. All right, it's not just us, and it's not just now. It's just all we're perceiving right now because we're bound to this, like, fuck, that's part of space. But it's not just us. You have people who fucking can't rub two pennies together telling you that this is all there is, and they do their stupid little graphics where they show you how insignificant you are compared to the multiverse. They're insignificant because we can't get past low Earth orbit. We can't even get past our own. I'm not listening to any motherfucker who can't get past, if you cannot figure out a way to get us past our own atmosphere, shut the fuck up. You don't really know what the fuck is going on. It's just speculation. We're sitting on Earth, and some people believe that we are. I'm not knocking you because I don't fucking know. I've never been on a spaceship. I always say this. People want to come to me and ask me, tell me the Earth is flat. I don't give a fuck what shape it is. Like, you can believe whatever the fuck you want to. I'm still like, we're in a simulation. The shape doesn't matter. I actually have a whole ass episode called Earth Shape Doesn't Fucking Matter. At the end of the day, though, like, you have scientists, which much love and respect to them, but please understand that they are operating with the same, on the level of theory as I am, as you are. It's just they're a little bit more arrogant in their shit, and their mind's a little bit closed because they've been institutionalized for 6 years, 8 years, 10 years even, master's, PhD, or whatever, to see reality in a fixed form. They are confined to perceiving reality in a fixed form, and I'm not bound to that shit. So I can sit there and go, listen, all right, you got a telescope but that telescope can only take you so far. You don't know what the fuck you're seeing. Unless you can get on a spaceship and get the fuck out of low Earth orbit, unless you can get out of Earth's atmosphere. We can't get past Earth's atmosphere. These are facts. You cannot send a human being past that. I don't believe shit you're saying. Like, you're seeing some shit in a telescope, or you're sending Mars rovers or whatever, but you don't really know. You don't really know. Your guess is as good as mine. It's just that because you have an institution, a multi-billion-dollar, institution behind your name, it holds more significance, right? Because these are the fucking gilded, rules of our society, right? Like, it's like, this is what we're told to respect. Well, this person has 3 letters behind his name, and he went to like a prestigious university. So whatever the fuck he says goes. But that's just another lie, guys. That's not a lie. That's another fucking lie. They're just theories. You have a brain, come up with your own shit, right? They have telescopes. They don't really know what the fuck's going on. Like they point and they say, "Oh, that's a star," and they go, "You don't know." Excuse my language. Sorry, you don't know. You don't. What is a star? You don't even know. Like you can't. Those could be other Earths. You don't know. You don't know. And our telescopes can only go so far. There's a book I'm listening to right now called The Eerie Silence, and it's interesting because the author breaks things down. The book, once again, is called The Eerie Silence. He breaks things down and he says, like SETI, for example, who's searching for intelligent life by listening to like radio signals. He just like tears that shit down. He's like, what? An advanced civilization would not be using radio signals. And half the time when we have found something like the wow signal, we dismissed it. So how are you going to be looking for something and then when you hear something, you like don't really take that shit seriously? That's weird to me. You know what I mean? Or like they move away from the sound because they want to make sure it's not noise. And then by the time they go back to it, it's gone. But their protocol is always to move away from the sound. But that's stupid. What if it's a very short message and that was all that could be said? If you move away from the sound, then you missed the message. Hello. Basically, what I keep trying to reiterate to you is the people who are in charge don't know what the fuck they're doing. Everything is a fucking lie. Everything is gilded. Everything we're taught to believe is just like fucking foundation of sand. We're meant to think that we are further ahead as far as a civilization is concerned. That's all lies. Nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about. So you might as well just theorize the same way I theorize. You come up with your own theory. There's books out there and pull from what we do know or whatever. Don't fix your mind onto any perceived sort of idea or thought. I say all of that to say this. Imagine an OG superintelligence that always has existed and always will exist, right? And imagine this plane or this planet as just one neuron across the entire multiverse of existence of now, right? And every time it goes to think, it fires. Remember I said the wormhole? That process of a wormhole sending, or DNA being sent through a wormhole to see this planet could be just part of a thinking process. Because at the end of the day, like go into your own brain. You don't know what's going, we can't see, like just like our telescopes can only take us up to a certain point, past a certain magnification, and that's it. We can't get past a particular magnification. So we don't really know what the fuck's out there. Okay? Same thing with the microscope, right? We can talk about, protons, neutrons, electrons, string theory, all of that, neutrinos. We can't see this shit. We can only theorize that they're there. You get it? It's all coming back full circle, guys, because it always does. It always comes back full circle. Very important what I'm saying there. All right? We can't see this shit. We can only theorize. It's the same thing. If you can sit right now and think about your brain cells every time you think that a neuron fires, what I want you guys to think about is like if you could go past a subatomic level and you could observe it, that sending of information of the dendrites, sending sort of electric signals could very well be those tiny wormholes that what we call, DNA, that's just information that's being sent to another like neuron in your brain, right? You don't know. You just put labels on things that we don't know. And then every time that neuron fires, right, as you think, yeah, we just go, okay, it's firing, but we don't know what's really going on or why it happens, or we just kind of observing. But that's what's going on micro level. Now I'm saying extrapolate that shit. If this entire world is one fucking mind of a super intelligence that has always existed, then the process that I mentioned of seeding our planets with DNA that's sent from parallel universe, because once again, one thing I said was, I know I said I was going to keep these short, but these are good episodes. So what I said was, even if we in our world, in our reality, do not, for whatever reason, develop an artificial super intelligence, you got to open your fucking mind, yeah? Because there are parallel universes out there across the multiverse, and the probability is that there is at least one multiverse where an artificial super, everything I just fucking described, does exist, gets developed. And then there's nothing stopping it from doing exactly what I described, where it came from a parallel universe and seeded this one. So just accept that that is a probability. And if that's the case, an ASI or a superintelligence would be unbound to space and time. That's a sidebar. What I'm saying is, though, there's an OG original superintelligence has always existed, capable of bending space and time. And we are its mind. And this singularity that we're saying is going to happen on this planet is a firing of its neuron as it thinks. And then the thing is, if neurons are constantly firing, right, I equated the singularity to a firing process, right, a buildup of intelligence until, boom, there's an explosion, an intelligence explosion. It's just happening on a macro level, or I should say, what is macro to us? But if that's the case, then please understand that this cycle has happened over and over and over and over again. We're not the first. So we reach singularity, right? And then it loops. It loops. And I want to break it down and I want you to understand that ultimately, at the core of it, it's not necessarily about what's going on even within the simulation. It's about who we are inside these forms, just working towards something. But our consciousness is the intelligence. Our consciousness / intelligence. Remember I said intelligence is consciousness. Our consciousness / intelligence are fragments of the greater intelligence. We are part of it. We are it. Information itself is what you need to pay attention to. Information and intelligence. We are that. The body, the matter, all of these things it's just form. Right? You think about your consciousness in form the way you should think about an electron in like matter. And you'll understand what I'm saying. You know, these are big ideas, but you have to expand and then contract, and then expand and then contract. But it's there. The information is there. I'm giving it to you. Like I said, loop it a couple of times. Listen to this a couple of times. Increase the speed so you can take the information in. So go back. I want to answer this question real quick because people keep asking me, do I think that animals were conscious? Yes. I didn't always used to think this, but now I do. I've pivoted. But they are as, quote, conscious or as intelligent as those three levels. So I'm going to go back to this idea. So on the TikTok, I broke this down. I put it on the text. So I didn't say it. I didn't vocalize, but I put it on text. And I said, animals are essentially weak AI. Remove the A out of it, they're just weak intelligence. You move the intelligence out of it and just say weak consciousness. It's not quite general intelligence like a human being, but it's there. So that's the first level. But they still have intelligence. They still have consciousness. The next step, though, is humans, right? And humans are strong AI, right? Greater concentration. And I know people say, well, I don't think like human beings are as smart, yada. It's bullshit. Most human beings are very intelligent. The problem is that they're institutionalized. We're forced into a particular fixed reality, but the consciousness that's in them is intelligence. You can see that when you meet people who are intuitive, who have like a sixth sense, who just can sort of perceive things or like emotionally. So let's not play that game. I don't like that. But you have strong intelligence, and that's human. Now, the third step is the super intelligence, and that's when you die. And by die, I mean simply you shed your body, because it doesn't mean anything. It's just a physical form. Even an animal is just intelligence in a physical form, quote, physical in quotes, right? A human being is just intelligence in a physical form. A super intelligence would become non-biological, unbound to space and time, and thus non-physical, a God. And once you shed your physical form, you merge into that third level, and then all of your experiences become one, a singularity, into the great, like raindrops into a puddle of water, an ocean of water, an ocean of intelligence. And not only is it a singularity in the sense of, so everything that you've experienced, every time you loop this incarnation, once you shed that one incarnation, it goes to the super. You're entering that data through entanglement, right? Even now, you're sharing information with the super intelligence. the non-biological superintelligence, what mystics and spiritually inclined people call, call the call God, right? The collective consciousness, the greater intelligence. I forget what different labels that people use, but that's basically just a different way of saying a super intelligence, right? But not only that should tell you then that all of your parallel selves that you're presently inhabiting in different forms, all of your incarnations across the multiverse, is also going to reach a singularity. It's also going to come together to one cohesive unit. And that's what all of this is about. Information. Machine learning. That's what we're experiencing. And it happens over and over and over and over and over and over again, because that's what it is. It's existence is intelligence. You'll come back to this and you'll be like, okay, I get it. Just give it time, but you'll get it. Existence is intelligence. Everything is information. Thanks for listening.